I'm greeting you all. Today, I'm having a conversation with Andrew Bridgen, former Member of Parliament, UK, with Jamila Lepere, journalist in the Netherlands, and Susan Stanfield from Canada, activist. My name is Daisy Papp, and I'm the founder, CEO, and president of the Daisy Papp Mindset Evolution Foundation. We are working for Dr. Reiner Füllmich's freedom, and we appreciate your help. All we do benefits Reiner and Inka. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now enjoy the conversation and get insights and also ideas, what we think, how Reiner is continuing his work and his life. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hi, dear. I know that we have a friend in common, and I'm welcoming you so that we can speak a little or even in big regarding our friend Dr. Reiner Füllmich. And I know that you've been there more recent than I've been, because I've visited Reiner in September. And I thought that it's a good idea to recap and to share our experiences. So ladies, I know that maybe it is said that we are more emotional than the masculino maximus from the species, but I'm not so sure, because I've met a lot of very, very lovely and very sensitive masculino maximus. And I wonder, so how is it when we go in there and we know the doors are thick and the bars are steady, and I remember a conversation I had with Inka when she said, Daisy, I cannot go there. Even if I could not imagine me leaving him behind and leaving. And that is somewhat the feeling that I got. How did you experience that? Going there, security, giving your IDs, and knowing that you're entering a space where Reiner is way too long.
Andrew, do you want to go first?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, Daisy, I've been case hardened to this, because, I mean, 5-6 years ago, I didn't know anyone who was in prison, but a number of my friends and acquaintances have been imprisoned over the last 6 years, and I've been and visited them. That's Tommy Robinson, Alex Belfield, and now Reiner Füllmich. And the reason I was willing to travel from the UK to Hamburg and get the train to Bremervörde is because the most important thing is that the public is aware of Reiner's situation. And if I could do something to help bring a spotlight on that, that's the authorities really want people to be forgotten about. In England, we have a French word that we use for a dungeon. It's called an oubliette. An oubliette is to forget in French, and that's they want to put you in the oubliette and people forget about you. Well, that can't happen, because in my experience, and our judicial system is very corrupt in the UK, one of the weapons we do have to keep the judicial system on the straight and narrow is a lot of public interest. And they hate it. So that's why I went. It is very sad when the door shuts and you're going back outside into the fresh air, and Reiner's going back, or your friends going back to their cell. But it won't be forever. And the more we can bring the spotlight onto this, the sooner justice will be served. And I think we can get Reiner out as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you. And Jamila made a wonderful work as a journalist. She recorded, and I thank you both for that, or all three of you, because that is very important. Jamila, how was it for you going in? And
well, I think it's a very strange thing, because when we came, we were quite in a joyous, boisterous mood, because there were two Danish people all of a sudden in front of the prison. I mean, you come there and it already hits you when you are in the parking lot, because there's just the building of the prison, of course, is gray and barbed wired, and it's even though it's in a friendly place, you know, it's not desolate, but it looks desolate because of, yeah, there are no windows, there's no warmth. But then two Danish supporters came, and they were as surprised as we were, because they thought there would be a lot of, noise and people there because Andrew Bridgen was coming, so everybody would come. And we were surprised they made the effort to come all the way over, I think even from Sweden, where they resided before they came down. And so we chatted to them. They were also active in their thing. So, and then we were too early. And they said, why don't you have a coffee in our van? And I naively thought they would have a VW bus, you know, and we would be standing outside and have a cup of coffee. But they had this fantastic, almost like a horse transport converted car, you know, that big, but really nice inside as well. So we had a chat there about resistance. And so when we came to the prison, it's very strange because you're energized because you're meeting all these like-minded people and it's fun. And then you go in and there's some tension. There was some palaver at the door about taking money in. And then, of course, it's happy because you see Reiner, you know, he was standing there already when we arrived upstairs waving. And an hour is very short when you're with three people, especially if you haven't seen each other recently, you know, so everybody wants to tell their thing. And especially he wants to say his thing because he can't really talk to anybody else except his wife twice a week on the phone. And so that is all very energetic in a way. But then comes the moment that the man behind us at the desk says it's time to go. And you're right in the middle of a conversation and you suddenly have to go. And we go out the door near us and he has to walk to the other side of the hall and he waves. And I mean, that's just heartbreaking. It's so absurd, the whole case. And then he's left behind. And so when we came out, none of us said anything. You know, the whole boisterous mood had completely vanished. And yeah, so it is. I thought it was very emotional afterwards. And I think we're all a bit down. I was a bit down afterwards. Yeah, well, that was my experience. Yeah.
Susan, how did you feel that, or how did you perceive going there and coming into freedom, you yourself, but with Andrew and Jamila?
Well, maybe my situation's unique because I also have been assaulted and thrown into a prison cell. And same with my husband, exactly like Reiner, in the middle of the night, abducted, dragged through the streets and thrown into a prison. And he was tortured for 2 weeks. So I know this landscape and I don't have sadness or fear about it because I know what it is. I know what it's like to sit in a prison cell and have nothing and no correspondence. But when I walked up the stairs and there was Reiner sort of standing there, you know, kind of waiting. I think he had his hands in his pockets. I started to cry, you know, because I know what it's like for him. I've stood in the room without freedom, knowing, and I know how difficult the circumstances. And there's a potential that he could be in there for a long time. I don't think so, depending on what we do. But once somebody, like we rescued my husband very quickly with the British government, I was involved. You got to get them out fast because if they don't come out fast, then they get stuck in the bureaucratic machinations of systems. And they have rules and regulations. And before you know, you're doing this, and then the law gets involved and it gets harder and harder to get them out the longer they stay there. It's like what we call an Amber Alert in Canada. An Amber Alert goes off when a child is abducted. And the most important timing is the next 24 hours. That's when you find the child. So I was very saddened because I can see how institutionalized this has become. And it's become normal now that Reiner was in prison, that he's in prison. It's become very normalized and very accepted. And there's a lot less outrage than we need. And there was maybe in the beginning, I remember when he was first arrested and my life was really difficult at the time. So I wasn't able to get involved. And so I'm just ready to go back. I want to go back. I want to tell them my plan. The Canadians are ready to create a campaign to get him out politically. And I really believe that Canada has the potential to play a major role because of how active Canadians were when Reiner started his committee. Millions of us followed Reiner in July because we were already a big growing movement because of the protests that I had started and others. So that's my belief. That's why I decided to get involved, because I was like, I don't get involved with stuff unless I think I can make a difference, unless I think I can win. And I was like, I can potentially win in this, and Canada can be a winner and an instrument here, so I have to get involved. Otherwise, I wouldn't be involved if I didn't think I had something important to contribute.
And how was it for you leaving?
I was just ready to go back and, guns blazing and jailbreak them. I'm a pretty hardcore advocate because I've gone through such awful stuff in the past 5 years with like Kate Shemirani and also Andrew, but I don't have any tolerance for the injustice because I know how it works. I grew up partly in this world. I know exactly what they're doing. Like Trudeau had a press conference in one of my oldest friends' homes in Canada. Like that's how connected I am. And I know exactly what they're doing. And I know exactly what the goal is with the bankers and the money. So I don't have any tolerance for it because I know what's at stake. So I'm never like, I cried because it's just so human to see him like that. But I'm never depressed or upset or sad. I'm always just full forward action, which is its own therapy, I suppose.
Here she is again, Jamila.
I'm
now
sorry.
We have two Jamilas. That's good.
Okay.
That's
I'm sorry.
wonderful.
I'm having so much problems with my internet today. I don't know why. So I'm gonna.
That
Is it okay?
fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when we think of Reiner as a human, because of course he's a fascinating and fabulous attorney and pioneer when it comes to asking these questions in the very beginning in 2020 when we had when we were exposed to that C word and now we know that he's brilliant. He's very well connected worldwide. He has friends. He has very good friends. And now, what do you think is the first thing he does when he steps into freedom? What's the first? I mean, okay, we know he's going to reunite with his wife, but what is the first thing, Andrew? What do you think is one of the first things that Reiner would do?
I think he'll pick up with the work on the committee. I think there's so much evidence has come out since his incarceration 2 years ago. I mean, and he's a great intellectual, a great advocate, and he's going to relish being absolutely proven correct. And of course, that's the reason why he's been incarcerated. It's not because he's not a threat to the authorities. It's not because he's wrong. It's because he's right. And yeah. And that's what he's going to have to do. And obviously, I'm sure that he'll realise he's got so many friends all over the globe. The globe's got a lot smaller, and the threat that we're facing for humanity is a global threat. And in many ways, it's brought people around the world a lot closer together in shared hardship and trouble, really. And yeah, I think Reiner's going to be part of the solution where we sort this mess out. And I think we're going to end up in a position where we can have a much better society moving forward than we've had in the past.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I believe, as you say, that we are many and we now are more and more visible to each other, because I think maybe it's also a frequency thing that we resonate on the same wavelength. That's also possible. And I do believe that building for a beautiful, more beautiful society and humane society, that's something we can do together. This is not a one-man show or one-woman show. That is something that we do together. And we do it.
It's a shared humanity. It's a shared worldwide humanity experience of oppression. And we're in a spiritual war. It is very much good against evil, I think. And the world won't look the same for a lot of people when the facts come out. And it's people like Reiner who we need to, who's very good explaining the facts to the public, which is why he's seen as a danger. I would say, Daisy, I was very pleased that Reiner's being treated rather better in Bremervörde prison than he was in his previous prison. And there's obviously a case to answer about the way he was held in the previous prison and the treatment that he got there, which would appear to torture, certainly sensory deprivation, and that is a form of torture. And that was outrageous, considering even the charges he was facing, which were false. But I mean, that they were not certainly not anything that would excuse the authorities from torturing a prisoner.
Yeah, yes, and now that he was in isolation for more than 6 months in Rostov, so that's just
Well, and then, of course,
unheard of.
every time anybody in the world loses their human rights and freedoms, we all suffer. That's where we are. And if we tolerate one person being treated like that, we're setting ourselves on a very, very slippery slope where we can all expect to be treated the same way.
Yeah, I agree. So Jamila, what do you think? What are the first few things that Reiner is doing when he's free? What's the first? Of course, he's reuniting with Inka. That's a given. So what is something that he's doing?
If I were Reiner, I would, have a party or a beer with friends. That's the first thing I would do. And he probably needs some time to recover, because he's a very strong and feisty person. But I do think 2 years, of which 6 months in isolation, you do need some time to just like we saw with Julian Assange. He's been quiet. He probably is catching up on world affairs and something in the background, but you do need time to recover. I do think with his stamina and fightful spirit, he will be back, like Andrew said, and he will carry on his work. Because let's not forget, he was a threat in 3 ways. It was a threat with his platform, providing information for everybody, but he was also running for parliament. And that party that had just been founded, Die Basis, just got, 30,000 members in a couple of weeks or months, so he was a threat in that way. And then, of course, he was still trying across the world to get this class action suit going. So on 3 levels, they were afraid of him. Plus, he had this international network up to highest levels. So in my Dutch, I had an interview here for a Dutch channel. And I explained the difference between the resemblance and the difference between Reiner Füllmich and Assange. Of course, they're very different people and they did very different things. But what they both did was to establish a platform of information where people could go to get information that they could not find easily elsewhere. And of course, the documents sent to WikiLeaks by whistleblowers were entirely different. You couldn't easily get them anywhere else. And Reiner Füllmich's information became available elsewhere, but he was one of the first international ones that got such an impact. So what they have in common is that they built a platform where you got information that the government didn't like you having.
Yeah.
But the difference is that Julian Assange, of course, got very big when the media still worked. He collaborated with the New York Times, with Le Monde, with Die Zeit, all those big newspapers. And even though they turned against Julian Assange, he still had created a whole network of independent journalists, or even maybe mainstream journalists who were quietly independent, that still advocated his case. The other thing that was not the case with Julian Assange is that the attack or the charges were not brought forward by his own team. So Reiner Füllmich, he had his platform in a time where media didn't work anymore. So he had no journalist circles that already had picked up on him. And it was his own team that started his case against him. So it's a similar case, but totally opposite. So Reiner Füllmich has had all the odds against him in a way. And that's why, so as many of us need now to stand up for him, to give him a platform to fight for his rights, is my opinion. But it's hard to do when the governments don't work as they did before Corona. The justice system is broken in many countries. And it's like what Andrew said, and what also a lawyer of Julian Assange said, I think his name was Ratner, that he could not win a case if the public pressure was not with him. And so we have to work on building up public pressure. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Susan, you have met Reiner now for the first time, and maybe you can still visualize. So what are things that he's going to do once he's in freedom? And of course, the first priority is that he's reuniting with his wife and the family dogs. But what do you think he's going to do? Not what you think he should be doing, but what is he doing? What's he going to do?
Well, I had met Reiner before on Zoom. I interviewed him in October of 2022, so a year before he was arrested. Well, I honestly, I can't answer that question. I have no idea what he's going to do. What I would suggest he do is step back and heal and take care of himself. So as someone who's married to a person who was tortured in a prison and all that, my husband went through rehabilitation and some therapy, which was very important because that stuff works. The torture does have an impact. It has an effect. It does affect the brain and the psyche and stuff. So I would hope that he chooses to relax and be with Inca. If he's in Mexico, I know they have their dogs and all that, because there's no rush. You know, this isn't a sprint. And I think the one thing I've learned the most of is that we don't win every battle in this, but we are winning the war, and we will win the war over the next 5, 10, 20 years. And that's what's more important is Reiner's fulfilling, meaningful, happy life with his family. You know, it's like because I was one of the first people to call fraud on this. I was one of the first people to get completely destroyed financially, emotionally, reputation, stuff like that, all through 2020. And I knew that I would have to step back. There was no point in, it's like military. It's like being soldiers, that I did my part. I was the vanguard. I was one of the first team out to take the bullets. And I wasn't doing anybody any good if I was out there injured and not able to perform in the same way. It's very like military battle, right? And I was probably better off stepping back and taking care of myself and relaxing and re-strategizing, which is exactly what I did. And now I educate women in Canada, and mostly I do that and run businesses to promote justice. So I don't know. I think that he's going to need months, you know, if he just takes 6 months to be quiet and be still and figure out exactly what they want to do. What I want him to do is open a school, because I think that that's his greatest gift to humanity, is to educate us and to educate the world on what justice through legal means, and his grand jury and whatnot, what that really is on a big picture umbrella sense, and not necessarily continuing his corona investigative work. For me, my opinion is that's not really important anymore, because it's sort of the old story. The next concern we have is these wars that are coming and the control system. So that's what I hope he does. But God, who knows? Maybe, I don't know if he expressed to anybody what he really intends to do. He told me he would like to either reside in the States or Canada temporarily. That's what he told us in the prison. So whatever it is, he's got to take care of himself and his family first.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much that you all do your part. And I really think that we are many, and we need more people who do what they can do. And
Daisy, can I add one more thing? Because
many.
In terms of public pressure,
Yes.
what Reiner told us in the prison is that there's a case coming up where his detention conditions, the legality of it, will be revised or reviewed. I don't think it was submitted when we were there, but once it is submitted, it will take about 2 weeks for the hearing to take place. So I think public pressure right now is quite important, so that, you know, that we can do whatever, to let the German justice system feel that there is a need outside of prison for him to be free, and that this is just not on, 2 years in preliminary detention and then 6 months in isolation. They have to let him go.
Yes, I 100% agree. And let's also remind the people who see this and who listen to your beautiful insights and outlook for Reiner, and your generosity, that you took your time and that you went there and visited Reiner, because I know it's emotionally not easy, and it's physically not easy too, because it's not like you fly into an airport and then you're there. It is quite a trip to go to Bremervörde and be there. And neither Reiner nor Inca have an income. And I do believe that it is very important that we support them financially as much as we can. So whoever can, do what you can. We do what we can. And when you have great ideas, contact us, and we're gladly forwarding the good ideas and have them reviewed by those who make the decision. And that is Reiner himself with his wife, Inka. Thank you so much for your time. Is there any thought that you'd like to add? Any of you?
Well, I have one question kind of thought. I think this might be a big lever, and I'm always looking for the levers. I just saw a press release that a huge delegation of the AFD is headed to see Trump in December.
Mhm.
And to me, that could be a big, as you were saying, Jamila, a big moment because of the language barrier. A lot of people will not understand what's happening in Germany if all the correspondence is in German. Like, that's why I didn't get involved with Reiner's arrest or whatever, because everything I saw was in the German language and I couldn't understand anything. So when the AFD arrives, I don't know if it's the 7th or the first week, I don't know if you've seen that, Andrew. When they arrive in Washington, I think a great thing would be for them to be carrying a sign that says Free Reiner, because there won't be any bigger publicity than that. The German Bundestag or candidate members arriving into Trump's office. That's our biggest PR opportunity of all. What do you think?
I totally agree. The Trump administration would be a great ally to put pressure on the German government to release Reiner Formic immediately.
Yeah, I agree. Well,
Maybe
let's
you
continue.
could go, Jamila, and cover it.
All right. Well, we'll talk about it afterwards.
Because our friend Bev Turner is there. She runs the DC bureau of GB News.
Yes, she does. She's a great lady. I know her.
And Trump loves her.
I know her very well.
Okay, well, thank you. We will leave the room open, but that is happening backstage. So everything that was said is really coming from the heart, and I thank you from your opening your heart, because that is very important. I enjoy having humane conversations that are also solution oriented. Thank you very much for your time, and talk next time. And I think we will have good news. And help Reiner as much as you can. You can see in the links all the possibilities how you can help and support for Reiner's freedom. Thank you so much, and I'm sending much love for all of you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, Daisy, for hosting this.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Daisy. Bye-bye.